Hi. Well, really glad to be invited to be part of this summit. Um, I've been talking with the chief about these kind of things, issues in this area for a very long time. And from a very personal perspective, I actually grew up the coast and many years ago. And I have a picture in my house with me as just a little child sitting on the rocks in an area not too unlike this, just looking out to sea and wondering, where did the waves come from? What's under the water? Why does the seaweed grow? And then grew up, went through education, and now I'm the resident oceanographer. So I've noticed a lot of things over the years and have some thoughts on, what we could do in the future, perhaps. So some of my observations have been, as a child, we used to sit on the rocks with long poles, and we'd reach out over the seaweed and fish for smelt. And I'd harvest dulse and periwinkles, and I'd swim in the ocean. And I'd see the mysteries that the ocean brought into the shore, whether it was buoys or wood. One of the things I remember is we would, if you'd pick up seaweed like we see along here at the top of the tide line, you would get tar balls in your hand and you could just feel the tar. When I walk the coast now, I don't see that. And I haven't seen that for quite a few years. One of the other things is when I started, it was more my university days, one of the first aquaculture sites was put in place. And as a scuba diver at the time, I was able to dive around the farm. And now we have a major aquaculture industry in this area, and I study it professionally. Another thing I've seen, I used to see the vessels steam up the Bay of Fundy into St. John Harbor and into this area, wondering, where are they coming from? What are they carrying? Well, now I have some insight into that. I saw the Maktaquac Dam being built in the 60s. And as an oceanographer, I've often wondered, what impact does that have on the oceanography of this area? The St. John River system, which is just upstream from this territory, is the largest freshwater source into the Bay of Fundy and much of the Gulf of Maine. It was dammed. What impact did it have on the fundamental oceanography and ecology of the area? And then recently there have been some thoughts of, are they going to take it down or leave it? We've got locally the Milltown Dam coming out. We've got causeways that may come out. The oceanography program here began in around 1900, the late 1800s, 1900s. I'm just the most recent resident oceanographer, if you like. So a lot of the oceanography has been done in relation to applied issues. Energy was the big one. The Cooper Dam, which is the causeway on just across the water over there that they're thinking about taking out. We had the potential for tidal power in Minas Basin, which would have influenced the tides in this area, which would influence the entire ecology of this area. A lot of the original science was done, particularly the biological science. Some of it was done for curiosity, but a lot of it has been done because of issues. And one of the big issues was decline of herring, or then we had clams. A lot of people looked at it from the perspective of there's money to be made. Others looked at it from how does the ecosystem work? So the oceanography has largely been enabled, if you like, by issues rather than pure curiosity. But when I look at the system, like I said, as a child, I would wonder, how does it work? Where are the fish? What are they doing? And I have a much better perspective or more in-depth knowledge of that now. But one of the things I really recognize is that different people have different perspectives and they see things differently. We're standing here on the coast and I'm looking out on the water, and if we were just out fishing like I was as a child, I see a very local perspective. Some people have a much broader perspective. They fish offshore, they have recreational things offshore. Now we have satellites. We can have a broader perspective. So we need to keep communicating with each other and having conversations about what is the state of the system. What are our goals? What do we want? What do we want for the system? We need to learn to appreciate different people's perspectives. Just because the way I see it may not be the way somebody else sees it. And I've always enjoyed trying to listen and hear what other people have to say. How do they see it differently? Because we don't know it all. I look at it as a scientist and as a person that uses the area for recreation, thoroughly enjoy it, raise my child here. We go out boating, see the porpoises, the fish. There's a lot of personal connection. And this area, historically, the biological station where I work, which is just down the shore, it was chosen. This location was chosen because of the natural, in part, because of the natural diversity of this area, the physical diversity, major tides, sandy beaches, rocky beaches, sandstone, more solid boulders, wave-driven, quiet areas. The currents are strong in some areas. We have up to 8-knot currents in some areas. We've got almost very little current in other areas. The tide is still going up and down. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest tides in the world. They're up the coast in Minas Basin. We're close to that. There's been interest in this being a World Heritage, Wonder of the World kind of thing, to be a national park. It's all because of the diversity of both the physics, which leads to the biological diversity, and then from the First Nations. They've been here for a long, long time. They've survived and thrived in this environment. And now we've got commercial fishing, aquaculture in the modern world, being with external threats like climate change, growing populations. And it's a good time to really step back and consider what we want. How does the system really work? Do we need to restore some things? What do we want to restore it to? Gain better understanding of how it works. We don't understand everything. So as a more senior scientist now, I guess I'm kind of at the stage of looking back and then looking forward to say, what have we learned? What can we do better in the future? What are some of the objectives? And one of the main things I see, I think, is we need a broader dialogue. There are many perspectives, there are many partners and players in the area. And as a scientist, it's invigorating to sort of hear from others and have that perspective. As an individual, I think all of us can bring components to this story, to this evolution. So we should be asking ourselves, what can I as an individual do with the skills and perspectives I have and the abilities and the interests to help? Probably no one person has all the answers. But we need to be willing to listen to other people's perspectives. And as a scientist, I try to strive to bring understanding. So is really one perspective different from the other in the fundamental knowledge of the way it's working, or are we just seeing the same thing? Because the system is out there, it is working, it does exist, but we're seeing it differently. Do all those different perspectives come together to a common understanding, or are we really, because there is something out there, and help each other recognize that maybe we're seeing it from a very narrow perspective, some with a broader perspective, and just continue that and keep the dialogue and the conversation going and try to have this place persist and be in a healthy, environmentally healthy, people healthy situation for generations to come. And we do have some major changes that have occurred, some natural. The Saxby storm was one that long before us, one of the biggest storms here. The storm surge went 7 kilometers inland. None of us have seen those kind of conditions. We're overdue for another one. There's man-induced things. We need to have the dialogue to say, how are we going to adapt? How are we going to correct? How are we going to adjust? And how can we contribute? And so I'm hoping this summit is one step in that direction that sort of gets a range of people together to help with the dialogue, help identify things that people can do, help people become comfortable with participating and contributing. And that's the beginning of a wonderful way forward to a broader perspective with more understanding and satisfactory to many, many people.